Let's see. Let me get the. Yeah, we're live. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah. So there's latency. Let's see if everybody finds it.
Yeah, I think that happened once before where you had to start another stream.
It happens. I don't know. Every time I'm getting hold on, my computer's talking to me. Let me mute my computer. I told him to come find it. Live chat. Screws everything up because yeah, it shows we're live. Okay, they found it. Bathlinger. Yeah, they got it. Okay, I'll just have to watch the chat. I have to watch the chat box. I don't know what happened. Every time I do one of these, it's like starting all over again for me, and I don't get it. I watch videos, and I think I understand what's going on, and then I don't understand what's going on. It's just too complicated. But here we are. We're on here live. We're on here live tonight with the Nikon show, and we're here with Kevin Railsback from what state?
Great state of Iowa.
Iowa. Is it? What city is that you're living in?
We are in Cedar Rapids, and we're going to be getting down to about 9 below zero tonight, I think.
Yeah. So today here it was 57. Tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Well, wait a minute. We're going to get what you got. Tomorrow is 54, but tomorrow night is like 18, and then Sunday night's 9, and that's pretty cold for Tennessee. And we normally don't.
I think we're going to have a high of like around 4 this weekend, but then later in the week it's going to be like 43, 44. But that's the Midwest for you. Wait a minute, it's going to change.
Yeah, Ray Saldano down in Chattanooga way, he said it was 65 down there today.
Oh, nice.
They're about 100 miles south of me. Chattanooga is, 70 or 80 miles. So they don't get quite as cold as we do up here. And of course, where I live, it's about 2,000 feet of elevation. So
gotcha.
Yeah, but I see that there's a big Alberta clipper coming down. So, normally down here, we don't see this kind of weather till about January. I mean, usually it's pretty moderate.
It's we've been getting a lot of snow early. I think we're probably maybe over a foot. I think we're supposed to get like another 3 to 5 inches tonight.
Yeah, I talked to a guy. Actually, I did an interview with a guy that lives in Iowa City. And he has a retirement channel, and I interviewed him for my retirement channel. Tim says 17 will be our low in a few days. Yeah. 33 in Louisville. Hey Doug, is that Louisville, Kentucky? There is a Louisville, Tennessee. It's over by Knoxville. I'm sure it's Louisville, Kentucky. I think that's who he's talking about. They're supposed to get some really good snow up there. Anyways, we are here talking with Kevin tonight. We're going to talk about Kevin. That's what we're going to do. And I've been wanting to find out a little bit more about Kevin, and I thought I'd bring him on the channel here and chat with him tonight. And we'll probably be on for about an hour or so. And I got some other things we're going to talk about. But first, I want to introduce you to Kevin Railsback. And he has a YouTube channel. And his YouTube channel is linked in the description of the live show tonight. So you can go down there and go over there and subscribe to his channel and see all the things he does. So Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your photographic journey, and just talk away. It's all about you.
Okay. Well, my photographic journey started when I was about 8 years old. My dad was in the Marine Corps, so every 2 to 3 years we would be stationed someplace else. Mainly it was stateside, but we did go to Japan for 3 years. But my aunt gave me, when I was 8 years old, a Kodak Star Flash. I think the format's 127 millimeter film. And that kind of started my journey. We went to Brookfield Zoo. We were living just outside of Chicago at the time. And we went to Brookfield Zoo, and I took a photograph of a walrus that I still have 55 years later.
Is that right? Was it?
Yeah,
It was black and white. It was black and white.
It was black and white. If you go to my website and go to the About Me page, you can see that photograph. But I really loved it because it let me remember the things I've seen. And when you were 8, that wasn't too bad of a deal. But now at 63, remembering things that have happened are a lot more difficult to do. So we were fortunate enough to live in Washington, D.C. So there's just all kinds of history there. And I just loved documenting all the things that I saw. And living in Washington, D.C. for 6 years, you become a pretty good tour guide because all your relatives want to come to D.C. to see all the monuments and the history and the Civil War battlefields.
I know the feeling. I was born in Akron, Ohio, but when I was about 5, we moved to Daytona Beach, Florida. And we got, all of a sudden, we got acquainted with relatives we didn't even know we had. Because everybody wanted to come to Florida, so it was kind of crazy.
I've seen cousins that I've never seen since when they came to visit when we were in D.C. But then after D.C., we went to live in Japan on a Marine Corps air station. And it was important to my father that we lived off the base so we would be immersed in the culture of the Japanese people. And one of the things that they like to do is they like to have Japanese students that are going to go to the U.S. as an exchange student stay for like a month with an American family just so they can kind of see what it's all about before they make that big trip to the U.S. and stay for a year. And so we would have students come and visit us. And in Japan, it's like if you would have somebody come to your house, then they would invite us over to their house. And you always would exchange gifts. And one of the gifts that I got was a Olympus 35 millimeter half frame camera. And living in Japan that is like one of the most amazing places to learn about form and composition, because even their food is art. So just to see, centuries-year-old temples and castles and all the wildlife and stuff there. So that's where I really kind of developed my love for photography, documenting all that stuff in Japan. And then when my father retired, we could have moved anywhere we wanted to. The military would have moved us anywhere we wanted to. So my sisters and we wanted to go to California. And my dad's like, let's go to Iowa. And,
what the hell's in Iowa?
When I told my friends in D.C., because we came back to D.C. after Japan again, we were moving to Iowa, and they had questions like, do you have electricity? Is there radios there? Just all these questions. And so anyway, he convinced us to go to Iowa. And that was right after the bicentennial in Washington, D.C., which again was another amazing photographic opportunity to be there for the bicentennial. So when I moved here to Iowa, I got a job working with General Mills. And that was my first really good income.
How old were you at that point?
I was a sophomore in high school when I moved to Iowa.
But you got a job at General Mills at what age?
That was at 20.
Okay.
So previous to that, I was a quarter pounder slinger at McDonald's. And I think most people end up working at a fast food restaurant
No,
sometime in their
no
life.
shame in that. No shame in that.
No, met some great people. Still have friends that I've worked there. But anyway, at 20, I got a job at General Mills, and
So can you recite the what's in a Big Mac?
2 all-beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
All right. Pretty good for an old fart.
Yeah. Well, you hear that so many times. So one of the first things that I wanted to get when I started working at General Mills, making some good money, was a better camera. And a friend of mine owned a portrait studio in an adjacent town. And so I talked to him. I said, hey, I want to get into photography a little more seriously. I've just got this Olympus half frame 35 millimeter camera. Fixed lens doesn't really, do a whole lot. So he suggested the Pentax K1000. He said it is a tank and it is all manual. So you will learn everything about the exposure triangle. He's like, you'll understand what aperture does. You'll understand what shutter speed does. And back then, they didn't have ISO. It was ASA.
Yeah, that's right. It was ASA.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and he recommended that I shoot slide film because he said, if you shoot print film, when you have it developed, the printer can compensate for underexposure, overexposure to a certain point. So you're really not seeing the raw. I guess that was kind of slide film was kind of like the raw file of the day.
So you're not seeing what came out of the camera.
Exactly. So he suggested I shoot slide film. And so I shot Kodachrome 64 for years and years. And the thing about shooting Kodachrome is I would go to like Yellowstone in later years. I would still be shooting Kodachrome before I switched to E6. I think Lumiere and Provia were like the films slide film I used to shoot later. But I was a Kodachrome kid for a long time. And the thing about Kodachrome is I would go to Yellowstone, and one trip I was there for a couple of weeks. I think I shot like 84 rolls of Kodachrome film. And I don't know if you remember, you used to have those little mailers that you would put your roll of slide film in, and then I would send it to Findlay, Ohio. And then I would come home, and then all these mailers, all these slide boxes will start coming home. And it was only then that I could see, if I had a good image or not. It wasn't like today where you have an LCD screen and you can just spray and pray and you know exactly what you have. So it was real important to me to learn proper exposure. And what I used to do is I used to carry around a notebook with me. And when I would shoot slides, I would record the shutter speed and the aperture. Didn't have to worry about ASA because Kodachrome 64, I always rated it at 80 to kind of slightly underexpose it a little bit. So all I had to worry about was shutter speed and aperture. And then when my slides would come back, I would take a look at them, and then I could see, okay, this one worked, this one didn't, this one had too much motion blur. So in this situation, I need to do a faster shutter speed, or this one had too much depth of field and I really wanted to isolate something. So I need, to open up the aperture a little bit more. So that's kind of how I really learned.
So are you saying that for every slide photograph you took, you actually wrote down the settings for that slide, for that frame?
I wrote down the settings, and then when they came back,
you would compare the settings to your slide.
Right, because you have to remember back then there was no internet. I think the only book I had was a John Shaw photography book, and that was years later. But there were no resources. We didn't have a Barnes and Noble bookstore. We didn't have the internet. So it was just me trying to figure it out. And now, granted, when I went to like places like Yellowstone and shot like 84 rolls, I already had a pretty good idea of what I was doing. So I didn't write anything down. But in those early days, I would find a flower to photograph or something, and I would take the photos, and I would play around with like aperture and things like that, and I would just jot down at 5.6, f11, and then when the slides came back, I could compare with my notes, and that's how I learned photography. There wasn't, I didn't have any mentors here in Iowa. I didn't, like I said, didn't have the internet, didn't have any books. So that was how I learned, just by trial and error. Like, oh, this worked good. What did I do? Okay, this shutter speed, this aperture. So I'll just do that again in the same situation.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to hear that. Being in Iowa, I guess you're out in the middle of no man's land. And back in those days, if you didn't have a camera store to lean on, or some older photographers that were around that would mentor you, you would be on your own. I was fortunate.
Exactly.
I was fortunate myself. I mean, I started my journey back in the '70s, and we had our high school had a photography class that was an elective, and I could sign up for that, and I did. And that's where I learned darkroom, black and white film, roll your own canisters, the whole bit, But to be honest with you, I really didn't understand photography at that level. I didn't understand, I guess I didn't understand what I was doing. I mean, I had a camera and I could take pictures and I had a good eye for it, but I didn't understand, what I was doing. And I never shot slides. I mean, I always shot black and white film, and that was it.
The only time I've shot black and white was years later. My local college had some photography classes, and I thought, oh, great, this is an opportunity. I could really learn some things. And one of the first assignments was we had to take a self-portrait using only the light of our oven or our refrigerator. And I was like, I really don't think that's the direction I want to go with my photography. I'm an introvert by nature, so I couldn't ever see myself doing like portraits or weddings or anything like that. So being an introvert, nature and wildlife is perfect for me.
So needless to say, you don't really jump out there and do street photography.
I do not. I'm too much of a chicken. I think even if I was like, I know Garrick sometimes like shoots from the hip, so somebody doesn't see him putting the camera up to their eye. But even then, I'm too introverted to even do something like that. So I shot with Pentax for a long time. Once I graduated from K1000, I went up to the Program Plus and the Super Program Pentax cameras. And one of the lenses, this is when I thought I really arrived, is I got a Tamron 300 f2.8 lens. And back then, Tamron had what they called adapt-all lenses. You could just, the mount would come off and you could put different camera mounts on it. So I had the Pentax mount for that 300 2.8. And eventually they came out with, I think it was a 1.4 teleconverter that actually offered some minimal autofocusing. So if you got fairly close, it would kind of fine tune it for you. And I thought that was just the cat's meow. So at one point I started thinking, Pentax is great, but they really weren't going anywhere past like the Pentax Super Program at that time. So I just happened to be flipping through a magazine and I saw the Nikon F3. And I was like, ooh, that's what I need, and if you flip through a lot of National Geographic magazines back in the day, it's like, Nikon was like Nikon and Kodachrome, and they would always put like somebody in a red jacket or something like that on the cover to really make it pop. So I thought I need to get an F3. So I started saving my money for an F3. And at that time, shortly after, then Nikon introduced the F4. And I was like, oh my God, this is this is like dying and going to heaven. You know, I mean, it's autofocus. It's got all these bells and whistles. And with my Tamron 300-2.8 Adaptall lens, all I had to do was swap the Pentax mount for the Nikon F mount, and it would work on my F4. So I got the data back to it, which back then you could set it to be like almost like an intervalometer. I remember one time when I was in Montana, I set it to wait 30 minutes so I could go to bed, turn off all the lights in the tent. And then I had it like do a star trail for like 4 hours. And, you know, back then you can't shoot like today. You could shoot 600 images and then, you know, put them all together and make your star trail. This was all on one frame. And one of the ways I can kind of tell if somebody has been into photography for a long time and they're kind of like my age is I ask them if they know what reciprocity failure is. And I don't know if anybody who grew up in the digital age knows what reciprocity failure is. And it's kind of like a weird thing because if you take too long of an exposure, it actually comes back underexposed. That's what reciprocity failure is. The best way it was ever explained to me is if you have a gallon bucket that you're filling up with water and you dump the water in there real quick, it's like that gallon of water that you dump into that gallon bucket fills that up right away. But if you take such a long time to fill that bucket up with water, some of that water evaporates, so you have to add a little bit more water to it. And that's what the reciprocity does. It's like if you take such a long exposure, you have to actually add a little bit more exposure to it to get a proper exposure. So it's really one of those weird things. But yeah, next time you run into somebody that's been around for a while, ask them if they know what reciprocity failure is. And like I said, nobody today will know what it is.
I've never heard of that before.
All right, everybody that's watching now or on the replay, it's like, go do your research and read up on reciprocity failure. I don't think it's anything in the digital world now, but I know people like Garrick is shooting some film, and you know, I know a lot of people are going back and shooting film, and so yeah, if you did long exposures and all of a sudden they kind of come back underexposed, that's why. Because you had such a long exposure, you got to add a little bit more to get the proper exposure.
Yeah. So let's hold on 1 second, answer a few comments there that are popped up in the comment box.
Sure.
Through Joe's Lens, he lives down south of here in Alabama. His name is Joe. Kevin's making me nostalgic for Kodachrome. And then Dewey Bing.
I still have a brick of Kodachrome in my freezer. You can't get it processed anymore, so I don't know why I still have it. But if anybody needs a brick of Kodachrome
nostalgia.
64, I've got it.
Yeah, exactly. Nostalgia.
I just can't part with it, you know?
Yeah. Dewey Bing lives up in, I think he lives up in Kentucky, Louisville area. He said the K1000 was his first real camera.
Yep,
and
that was mine too.
Heard, yeah, I've known a few people on YouTube that had a K1000. Woody got a Minolta SRT was my first camera, and he bought it at Kmart. Used to get your film developed there.
My first wide angle lens for the K1000 was a 28 millimeter that I got at JCPenney.
Yeah, Dewey said his parents used to buy them Kmart subs for dinner. And Rodney Basslinger says that those Kmart subs were great. I never had a Kmart sub.
I love Kmart. Yeah.
I never had one.
Yeah, we used to run around there all the time waiting for blue light specials, you know, for something good to go on special.
I had a niece that was probably about 3 or 4 years old, and we were going somewhere, and I was in the back seat with her, and my wife and her sister were in the front seat driving. And we were going down a South Orange Blossom Trail in Orlando, Florida, and there was a Kmart. And her first words that I got her to say was Kmart Blue Light Special.
You know, that's another one of those nostalgic things that, you know, a lot of people, you know, you say something about a Blue Light Special and they'll be like, you know, what are you talking about?
Yeah. So, back on your film stuff, you had this lens that would go on any camera, I guess, if you had an
Yep.
adapter, right? That's pretty
Yep.
wild.
Tamron Adaptall. So I didn't know I was going to be switching brands at the time. It was just I don't know. I don't know if Pentax had a 300-2.8 back then. But I knew that I could get this Tamron 300-2.8 with a Pentax mount. So then it just worked out good that when I went to the F4, I could get the mount, F mount for the Nikon, and I could just switch and keep using that 300-2.8, which, I didn't know anything about the 600 F4. I mean, I thought the 300-2.8 was, that's the top tier that you get to. And so I stuck with the F4. When the F5 came out, I got the F5 as well. And then I think my first digital Nikon was like the D70, I think. It was a 2 megapixel camera. And, one of the things I like to do is I'll still take that camera out every now and then and shoot some stuff with it. And, even at 2 megapixel, you get great photographs. And it's just kind of nice, because the Z9 is 45, 46 megapixel. And so it's kind of nice to go back to those days. One of the things I'm thinking about doing is taping over my LCD screen and just doing a challenge where I just take 36 images. I kind of disregard a lot of the technology we have and see if I still, remember a lot of the stuff that I had to learn back in my Pentax days. Because now, with the mirrorless camera, it's like, I was shooting the Northern Lights this last big storm we had. And with the Z9, I could look on the screen and I could see exactly what I was capturing. I didn't have to, gosh, is the exposure good enough? Should I, exposure longer? Should I increase the ISO? Now, with the digital, you can just see exactly what you're getting. So I stayed.
Look here, hey, look here,
Yeah.
Kevin. Look what I found. Okay.
Okay.
Can you see that?
That's it. Yep.
They got one at Use
2.8 Adaptall.
They got one at Use Photo Pro up in Indianapolis. There's some pictures of it.
I'm trying to think how much I paid for mine. I can't remember if it was like $1,200 but back in 1982, 84, that was a lot of money back then.
Well, they want 300.
Yeah, that's exactly.
They want $300, $330 for this one. It's used. How big is that element on the front? That thing's huge.
Yeah, I can't remember because, like I said, it was way longer. But yeah, it's like the Adaptall mount. So if they sold this one with like a Canon mount, you could find a Nikon F mount and use it. And then with the FTZ2, heck, you could shoot it on your Z9.
Yeah. So if it's all manual, sure. It's just like David Saylor shooting those old lenses he's got down there. They don't have any contacts or they don't talk to the camera at all. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the quality would be on something like the Z9. Because if I remember correctly, it's like the F-mount lenses, with film cameras, they always still had a little bit of curve on the film plane, even though, you had the rails that held the film flat. So I don't think that the F-mount lenses were inherently as sharp as the Z-mount lenses are now. I could be totally wrong on that, but the thing is with software and stuff now, you can take a mediocre photograph and make it stunning with all the technology we have with software nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Z lenses are probably more clinical type lenses. And, when I process an image myself, I I don't add any grain to it, but I always, I don't know what to say. Back in the early days of Photoshop, before Lightroom appeared, we didn't have very many tools to use to edit photographs. And the main things we have was unsharp mask. That was the main one, and Gaussian blur. Okay. And we would always manipulate our digital images. This is early on, in that fashion until Lightroom came out. And we didn't really, I did weddings for a while. We didn't do raw files. We used JPEGs. On a 2 megapixel body, okay, and produced 8x10s, 11x14s out of them. But the tools nowadays, and of course the lenses and stuff are really super sharp. Let me get a couple more comments here. Woody said,
Sure.
he gave that Minolta camera to my high school photography class. They like to start them off with film that goes along with what Kevin has been talking about, learning the basics. Exactly. Tony, hey Tony, how's it going? D70 is a 6 megapixel camera. He still has one. I know David Saylor was on there last week. He picked up a D200, which is only about 8 or 10 megapixels. Dewey loves Use Photo Pro. I've done some business with Robert's camera up there. The camera stores are going away, and there's still quite a few big ones. Like almost every state has one except Tennessee. Tennessee had one in Nashville called Drury's. Well, Robert's camera bought them out and closed the shop. I know there's one over in Asheville, North Carolina. There's one in Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky. Murphy's camera that we deal with, because they don't charge sales tax into the state of Tennessee. Don't know how they get away with it. That's just, it is nice. Ray said they aren't close, but if you 100% have to have it, inspect it closely, you can. I don't think you'll see the difference in a print. Dewey said if you get to Indianapolis, check out Robert's camera. And Bassanger says he deals with them a lot. Okay, Rodney's out in Arkansas.
Nice.
Yeah, so go ahead. I'm just want to catch up on the comments and not leave the people.
No, you're fine.
Leave people in YouTube land hanging. Go ahead.
So eventually I wanted to kind of learn more about photography. So I made a dark room in my bathroom, and I had a Betzler 23C2 XL enlarger.
I did that once.
Yeah.
I did it once.
That was quite the endeavor, trying to cover up all the windows and the doors and all that kind of stuff.
I had all my trays in the bathtub. I put them in the bathtub.
Well, I had, it was called a Daylab 300, and you could load the print into the drum, seal it, and then you could take it out. Like I always went in the kitchen, and it had a motor that would turn the drum, and then it had a handle that you could lift up to drain the chemicals. And I can't remember what printing from slides, if it was a 3-step process to do, but I could process my prints out in the light once I ran them through the enlarger. And that was kind of a good precursor to Photoshop, because you learned about dodging and burning, with your hands, blocking stuff, adding a little bit more light here and there. So that was another nice aspect of learning photography. And a little side note, have Photoshop 1.0 on a 3.5-inch floppy. So I got into Photoshop early, still know basically like the raw panel, with exposure, contrast, and all that. That's about all I get into. I mess around with adjustment layers a little bit. But mainly I use Photoshop for my Topaz Labs. I have Topaz Denoise, Topaz Sharpen. And for video, I have I don't know now. So I tried to learn all these different aspects of photography. And then in 2005, I started thinking, well, if a photograph is worth 1,000 words, then video at 24 frames a second is worth, 24,000 words. So I kind of hung up my Nikons for a while and started shooting And at NAB, Panasonic released their HVX 200 HD camcorder, and they didn't even have a prototype of it. All they had was a block of wood with a cloth over it. And back in the day, the gosh, I can't remember what the standard definition Panasonic camera was that everybody was using. But I thought, if everybody's using that and this is HD, I got to have one. So I put in an order for one. Didn't know anything about it, didn't know the specs, didn't know what it looked like or anything. So I actually got one of the first ones in the country. And I went up to northern Minnesota and I filmed some wolves. And
hold on one second, Kevin.
yeah.
I want to say something for everybody
Sure.
who's watching. Kevin's video is buffering, and I think he's got a slower internet connection up there. So now he's caught up. But there for a minute, it looked like he was making faces on YouTube. But we could still hear you, Kevin. It's just that your video was lagging a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of live down in a bowl, and we have T-Mobile cellular internet. And we only have sometimes like 1 to 2 megabit per second upload.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's kind of halfway working.
Yeah,
but
you're
as long
doing
as you
good.
can still hear me.
You're doing good so far. Yeah, just so they know at home that your video is lagging a little bit, but keep going.
I knew this guy that was on DVX User that worked with the Panasonic cameras. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, I'm going up to northern Minnesota hoping to film some wolves. Can you give me some ideas? Because I literally had this camcorder like 2 days before I was leaving. So, going from a Nikon to a camcorder, with XLR audio inputs and all these different things, I didn't know anything about it. So he gave me some tips. I went up there, came back with some footage, and he's like, hey, let me see what you shot. So I sent him a few little short clips, and he was like blown away. So he talked to this woman that kind of like headed up the US Panasonic division. And he said, the thing he said to her was, after he showed her the wolf stuff, was, imagine this in Africa. And he called me up and it's like, hey, you want to go to Africa? I'm like, yeah. So they had a brand new camera that I think it was like the HVX 300. It was one of those big over-the-shoulder ENG cameras. And they wanted me to go to Africa with it and shoot some footage that they would show at NAB saying, hey, this is what this new camera will do. So this camera came like right from Tokyo. And I was like one of the first ones to get a hold of it. So I emailed Jan. I'm like, hey, anything I should know about this camera? And she's like, yeah, just don't break it. And so I had to get a carnet for it, which is like a passport for gear. And the thing that worried me was this was like not a production model. So it didn't have like a serial number or anything on it. So I was like real worried going through customs. So I got this carnet that basically says, I'm bringing this from the US and all that. So we shot in Africa. And for several years, they would send me their new cameras and be like, hey, go around, film a bunch of stuff. And then they would have like an architectural filmmaker and then like a fashion filmmaker. And then they would put together these shows at NAB in Las Vegas. So I was pretty content shooting video. And then I got a job for a production company out of Illinois to do a film for a state park in South Dakota called Good Earth. And one of the things in the storyline was they needed a Milky Way footage. And there was no way that video camera could do Milky Way stuff. And just so happened that right around then, the Nikon D500 was announced. And right away, I put in an order for that. because I'm like, I can do a time lapse sequence of the Milky Way. So I kind of set the video cameras aside, got back into still photography and video with the D500, shot a bunch of stuff for that. And then when I was in Yellowstone waiting for Old Faithful to erupt, and B&H announced that they were taking pre-orders for the Nikon D850. So I was running all over the park trying to find cell signal because it would just be real spotty. So in the visitor center at Old Faithful, I put my order in for a Nikon D850. And I still have the D500, still have the D850, picked up a D780 as well because it was kind of like a hybrid. Because even though I'm shooting more stills, I still like to do video. And when you're shooting in live view with the D780, it acts more like a mirrorless camera.
Yeah,
so I use that a lot for video. And then, so I shot with that for a long time. Yeah.
You know, what's amazing is how many photographers, and I actually know several, that have both the D850 and the D500. There's quite a few out there that have that combination in their arsenal. One person I photographed with over here in Crossville, she's a wildlife photographer, and she has that pair, that combination. And she will use the D500 more often than anything. And I always question her sometimes, you know, about using the D850, but she mainly just uses the D850 for landscape stuff. But her D500 was on the Fritz last year, and she did use the D850 for a while with the 500 PF. But I don't think her production was as good as it was with the D500. She wasn't getting as good as the images.
Well, and I picked up the D500 because that was only kind of like my real only option at the time. And one of the things I wonder, because I use the D500 all the time for wildlife. I think it's like the wildlife camera to have. And I often wonder, it's like, why don't I just put like the Z9 in DX mode and shoot that way? But I still find myself going to the D500 for doing stills. So I don't know what the allure is with the D500 when I can just put the D850 or the Z9 in DX mode. But there's just something about that D500.
Well, I think, you know, when you're comparing the D500 to the Z9, and I'm not talking about the sensor, I'm just talking about the body itself. You know, the optical viewfinder versus the electronic viewfinder, there's a lot of old school photographers that cannot get used to that electronic viewfinder. And until the Z8 came out, the Z9, and then subsequently the Z8, there was all the mirrorless cameras before that had a lag in the view, you know, and that was hard to get used to your eye. You know, with the D500, when you hammer on the button, it's instantaneous. Okay. I mean, there's no mistaking that shutter sound when you're out in the field, and if somebody was standing behind you and had a D500, you know it. Okay, you could hear it. You know it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, the first time I took the Z9 out, I was photographing butterflies, and it was set at 20 frames per second, and the shutter noise was turned off. And I couldn't figure out why this number was like flickering in the lower right-hand corner of the viewfinder.
You were taking
pictures.
I
realized I was taking pictures, and I was taking a lot of pictures. You know, It's like 20 frames a second. You're almost shooting video at that point. So I immediately found the shutter sounds and turned that on. And most of the time, I turn my continuous frames per second down to like 10 or so. You know, unless I'm doing something where there's going to be a lot of fast action, I'll crank it back up to 20. But I think a lot of my old upbringing of shooting film, where you only have 36 exposures, and one tip the photographer always told me is never look up while you're changing rolls, because that's when something amazing happens.
Don't chimp on the LCD. because
Yeah.
you're gonna miss it.
So I think my upbringing in film helped me a lot to anticipate moments. So I don't have to really rip 20 frames a second. I still miss plenty of shots, but I think I have it dialed in more with slower frames per second, just because I've shot so long with film and only had 36 opportunities to get it right. So, I mean, my God, at 20 frames a second, just 2-3 seconds, you'd have burned through a whole roll of film.
Yeah. Let me catch up. Let me catch up on a few comments here. We're getting quite a bit.
Sure.
We're getting quite a bit of activity in the chat box.
Awesome, man. Keep them coming.
Yeah. Bass Angler said, I love the Nikon software. Woody, he's talking to Woody, but he's not big on editing. I try to make my photos look exactly like my eyes seen it. Yeah, I like that idea, really. I do. Recently, I was switching my camera body into RAW plus JPEG, thinking I would just post the JPEG images. So, I tried that a couple times, and I actually enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Let's see. Doug said he had the D750 and the D500 before he switched to the Z8. That's another upgrade path. A lot of people dump the D750 or the 700s, or even the 610s and jump right into a mirrorless like a Z8 or something. And a lot of people were waiting for that Z8 to come out. We didn't know it was coming, but a lot of people was waiting for something else besides the Z9 before they jumped into mirrorless. They knew the Z6, the Z6 II, and the Z7 II really didn't have it, okay? They were wonderful cameras, but they didn't have the fast shutters and, especially if you're a wildlife photographer. And I tried to shoot sports with the Z6 II with a 70-200, and it was slow, okay? It was slow on the shutter. Rodney said the D500, the D500, in my opinion, is still the best wildlife camera. Rodney, we're all with you on that. So yep. Rodney sent me a text message the other day, okay, and it was a YouTube channel, and this guy right here, I don't know if you can see it or not, he had a video out, okay, and he was talking. He was talking about the what's coming down the pipe, and he said he had reliable information. Okay, in other words, he wasn't just playing with people. So I watched that video, but Rodney sent that to me. We're both hoping for a D500 replacement. I don't know what it's going to be if it does.
I don't think it's going to happen, but yeah, it would be fantastic if it did, because they say the D850 is the best DSLR that's ever been made.
That's what they say.
But I'd say the D500 is right up there. It's a workhorse, and I've taken some great images with it, and I still take great images with it.
So there's a good example here. Woody said he watched a video today and he heard that shutter sound and knew he was using a D500, and he checked the video description to see if he put the camera info there, and Woody was right. So one of the guys that hits the round table with us, Phil Vignola from South Carolina, he and Phil Thatch were down in Florida a couple months ago, or maybe over the summer months, I can't remember when it was, but they were down there shooting together at Orlando Wetlands. And they were talking on one of the round tables about the difference in pushing the shutter. Phil was like a click, click, click guy, and Phil Thatch is like, So they were talking about the two differences in how they shoot. And I'm the same way with the D500. I kind of pulse it. I may let 2-3 frames go off at a time, and then I'll back off of it for a second, because what I'm looking for is bird mannerisms. I'm not looking for just a bird on a stick. I'm looking for the bird to do something. And as long as I keep that focus point on the bird and just kind of, and then when the bird really starts to do something, then I just hammer on it and see what I can get out of it, And
I think as a nature and wildlife photographer, it's like to really be good at it, you really need to be a behavioralist. You really have to understand the things that you're photographing. And, I'm sure a lot of people know this, but I always tell this to like non-photographers. They think it's pretty funny. Is like when I'm photographing eagles, if you see an eagle poop, it's going to take off and fly.
Yeah,
So
that's a given.
so that's one of the things I watch for. If there's an eagle that's roosting, and all of a sudden it takes a poop, I'm getting ready because it's coming off that branch. And so that's what I think is really important about anything. If you're photographing deer or pheasants or ducks, or I saw a YouTube short where somebody said, if you see a duck diving in the water like that, get ready because it's going to start, flapping its wings, to shake all that water off. And that's just another thing. Instead of spraying and praying, just understand what you're photographing. And, you see that behavior, what's coming more than likely. And, you can be ready for it. And just like you said, just do a short burst of 2-3 images and you got the shot. I don't know about you, but there's nothing I hate more than going into like photo room and having like 75 images of this thing where, it's just a fraction. It's like stop motion photography.
Just
give me 2 or 3.
I just got back from Chattanooga for a couple of days, and I was walking around the lake there, Lake Chickamauga, and there were birds, in the pine trees and stuff, and the little cedar trees got the little blue berries on them. And when I got home, and I was having some issues with exposure, trying to compensate for being in the dark areas and stuff. And when I got home, I started looking at the photographs I got, and I think I took about 500 images over 2 days. And I started just going X in Lightroom, X, just reject. I'm like, well, here I got this bird, and the first 1 or 2 photographs are fairly decent, and they're sharp and they're in focus. And then the other 55 I got after that don't matter because it's the same picture. So I kind of I think it's more of a safe. I think it's more of a safety net.
I think so, but then I have this fear: if I have 55 images of the bird sitting on a branch, I have this fear that the one I pick is not like the ultimate one. And it's like, sometimes, I think we as photographers, we get tunnel vision and we're looking at this bird and we don't see like something in the background that's not just right. And I have a habit. It's probably not a good habit, but I just transfer my cards to hard drives and I don't pull anything. So I have like every image that I've shot, whether it's in focus or not in focus, or, the bird's head is turned. I don't cull anything. Don't ask me why I do that. I think maybe there's some kind of subliminal fear that I'm going to need one of those shots, even though they're not anything
I get
that I would put up anywhere.
Yeah, I get that. I was the same way for the last. I started using Lightroom in 2017, I think, is when I started. And that's when I started having a catalog. And since 2017, my catalog had gotten quite large, and might not be as large as some people, but I considered it large. It was like 60,000 images. Oh, and wow. I started going through them last year when I retired. I said, you know what? I need to clean out my Lightroom catalog. And I started going through there and reject. And when I got finished, it took me about 4 months. But when I got finished, I went from like 60,000 images down to 20,000 images.
Oh,
I mean, wow. I got rid of 40,000 images. And I'm like you, though. I was afraid to get rid. Now I have a backup. I have a hard drive that sits in the safety deposit box at the bank. So I have a backup of those, and I'm not worried about it. But you know what? It's just like it's no different than decluttering your house. The way I look at it is, if I haven't looked at that picture in a year and it doesn't give me any happiness, then why keep it? Okay, that's just my philosophy.
That's a good attitude to have, but it's like it's like when I go someplace, like I was in Arizona. There's a place in Gilbertville, Arizona called Riparian Water Preserve. and they have like 300, almost 400 species of birds that visit this. And it's an amazing place because there's all this water in the middle of a desert. So I was so worried about shooting that my process is I use smaller like CF Express or XQD cards. And then when I get back home, I have those little thumb drives. I get these little Samsung 64 gig thumb drives for like $17. So I back up the card on that, and then I back up the card on a SSD, and then I'll back up the card on my main hard drive, and then I'll take that XQD card and I'll turn it over so I can see that it's shot, and I won't format it until I get home and dump it on another drive. So I literally have like 4 times the number of hard drives I need because I've just got so much redundancy.
Yeah, so when I go out shooting a long time, like if I go spend a week in Cades Cove shooting wildlife, every evening when I get done shooting, I'll remove the camera cards and I'll copy them to a SSD drive, an external SSD drive hooked up to my MacBook. But I don't delete anything on the card. I go shoot again tomorrow, and then I'll just bring the card back over and I'll do it again. I just copy everything off the card, so you can see you got a progressive backup through the week.
Yep.
And until I get, as long as I don't fill that card up. Now my cards are big. I've got 256 gig CF Express cards, but as long as I don't fill the card up, I'm okay. But if I get to a point where the card fills, then I'm in trouble. Okay. So I always carry one extra CF Express card in my wallet that has nothing on it. In case I was out shooting and that card filled up, I'll just slap that other card in there real quick and finish the day off. So I try not to, when I'm in the field, I try not to delete anything off the cards if I can help it.
I keep a small XQD card or CF Express card in every one of my camera bags because I can't tell you how many times, especially with the Z9 now, I use bigger cards. I've got like 1 terabyte CF Express cards that I use because like when you're shooting like 8K video on the Z9, you can fill those cards up quick.
Yeah.
But the problem is to offload them takes so long. And I use ChronoSync to because it does a bit check to make sure exactly what is transferring over gets transferred over. So a lot of times I'll start that big card transferring at night, and then I'll go to bed, and then next thing you know, it's like I'll wake up and there'll be like hoarfrost all over the place. So I'll grab my camera, go flying out, drive half hour to the nature center, and realize that the cards are still sitting in the reader. So I keep a small card. I keep a small SD card for the 780, and then a small CF Express card for like the D850 and the Z9, because I can't tell you how many times I've gone out to photograph the Northern Lights or something like that. And, you drive away from the city and you get everything all set up, and then there's that, no card. And it's like, oh, geez. So
I've done it. I've done that on my video cameras. I'll leave the SD card in the computer and take off with the Pocket 3 or something to get outside to do something, and then get the horrible red X, the red line through the card. I said, oh shoot, I left it inside.
So the only part I haven't figured out yet is because there are times that I've gone out to like photograph the Northern Lights and I did have a card and I used that card. But then it's like, how do I remember to put that card back in my camera bag and not have the same situation? So I bought these little card cases, and like these, here's like some XQD cards in it. So
I've got one similar to that.
So I put one card in here and I have it in the console of my truck or in my camera bag. And if I pull that card, I put this case on the seat of my vehicle. So that way, when I go out the next time to photograph, and this is sitting on the seat of the vehicle, then I know it's like, oh, I didn't put that card back. So I'll run in and grab it and put it back in, and then grab another card that, you know, I need to throw in the camera and shoot. So that's kind of like the only way I've figured out, because otherwise I would probably literally have a dozen cards sitting here and still none in my camera. So that's the solution that I'm using right now is if I take the card out of my bag, I set this on the seat of my truck, and when I get back in it the next time, I know I didn't put that card back in my bag.
Yeah, let's catch up on a few more comments here. Pretty lively tonight. Ray Saldano, he edits, saves the edits, and after a month or so, deletes everything else, even the raw files. So he only saves his edits.
Wow, I am too chicken to do anything like that.
He's just the opposite of us. Woody says, Ron, group autofocus for large birds in flight works very well for me with the D500. Let's see, I asked a question. Yeah, okay. Because I told them that I suck at birds in flight. I just do, okay? Mm-hmm. I don't even attempt to be a good person at it. I told them I have my center button on my joystick for the D500 set up for group. And that's the one with the 4 boxes in a diamond shape.
Is that like the there's like a D25 or something like that, where it's like a whole bunch of little squares? Because I found when I tried like the bigger single box, it's like I would still have a hard time getting that in focus. But with like that group, it's like any one and it would hand off to whichever one the bird would be flying into. So if I picked it up on the box that was over on this side and it was flying, it'd transfer over to that one. And I can't remember if it was like D12 or something like that on the D850. That worked the best for me before I switched to mirrorless. Yeah.
For Rodney says it's four diamonds. It's D9 on the D500.
Okay. That's what works best for me.
I'm confused now. D9, does that mean that it's got 4 boxes or 9 boxes? I guess
9 boxes.
So they're in the
number. Yeah, there's like a main box and then there's boxes outside of it. And
that's group.
But so is group the D? I wish I had my D850 sitting around. I'd look it up. But I know there's like maybe it is just 9 boxes. I haven't done it for so long because I use the Z9 now for birds in flight. But what I liked about it is it will transfer the focus to the other boxes as the subject moves through, and that increased my my good shots tenfold from using just a single box or something like that. Even the widest box just never, because especially like when I'm shooting eagles and stuff out here in Iowa, I'll pick up the trees and stuff behind it, where that group, that D9 or whatever it is, that works so much better for me for birds in flight on a D850.
So the group, what the chat box is saying, group is the 4 boxes. So that would be in a diamond shape. There'd be 1 at the top, 1 at the bottom, and then 1 on each side like this. So it'd be like I call it a diamond shape, or
Okay.
So if you set it up for group, that's what you should get. Now the other one might be a dynamic. That's where you get the D9 or D25 at. I think group just says GRP. So the one you're talking about has 9 points in a square with the one in the center, and I think that's like a dynamic focus system. And I've never used that on the D500, but I do back button focus on my back button. It's a single point, single point continuous AFC. But if I want to switch over to group real quick, I can hit the center joystick button. I got mine programmed for the center joystick, and it'll go to group. So you can just move your thumb from the autofocus button down to that joystick button while you're still composing and moving with the bird. And I've tried it. I did get a photograph of a vulture the other day. You know, it's a big bird, and they were kind of circling around above me. And I pointed up, and every once in a while I'll practice. You know, try to do it. Now on a small bird, I don't even fool with a small bird in flight because they move so fast. You're not going to get your depth of field if you're shooting with the 500 PF. You're at 5.6. Your depth of field isn't even there to handle that. It says Rodney said. Now Rodney Bassangler. Do you know who he is?
I do not.
Okay, he lives in Arkansas. Now Rodney's a big D500 fanboy, and he knows what we're talking. He knows what he's talking about. But he says, I found that if you put the bird in the center of the diamonds, it is faster. So, in other words, the 4 boxes I just explained to you, if you're right in the center, it's faster. Now, I've never tried that. I've always just tried to keep it within a vicinity of one of those boxes in the center of the screen. Group is correct. Yeah, I'll have to try that more often. And it's just a matter, I think, of practicing that, and getting that right. Hey, one thing I want to hear about from you real quick is your video of the day challenge. I mean, I seen where you did a bunch of shorts a month or two ago based on, I think, something Tamara Gabriel had put out. And are you doing another challenge?
So I did the first one was the Make the Damn Video Challenge. And if you know me, I overthink everything. So I have millions of ideas for videos. And one thing is I set the bar so high, because I've watched people that have been making YouTube videos for years. And so I'm like, I can't get up to that challenge. So I usually talk myself out of doing videos. So she created this Make the Damn Video Challenge. And it was like, you know what? Just make the damn video. Every day for 30 days, I'm going to send you a prompt like today's video is supposed to be about what I would tell my future self or, something like that. And then you just make a video and upload it, no matter how good or bad it is. So I actually did that. I did 30 videos in 30 days. Some were short, some were, long form. So she said that December is the time where everybody kind of backs away from doing creativity, except for you. It's like, my God, every day I think I see a new video of you, you're out here doing this camping, you're out here doing this. I'm like, man, it's like, I'm retired too. And it's like, I put out a video like once a month or something. So December is a slow time. So she created the Make the Damn Video 12 Days of Christmas, and registration closed today. And tomorrow I will get my first, and the thing, we don't know anything about what the video is supposed to be about.
She's just feeding them out every day. And you got one day, you got one day to do this?
Yep. So for the next 12 days, tomorrow morning, I'll wake up and there'll be an email that says, make a video about your fondest Christmas gift ever. Wow. So then I'm like, well, okay, I've got to make that kind of like video.
You got to go find find your Lincoln Logs or your Rector set.
well, and that's the thing. It's like, if I can't make a video about the Amazing Strange change machine, which, I bought one of those when I was like 50 now because I loved it so much. I have to make it about photography. So it'll be about, maybe it'll be about that Tamron 300 Adaptol that, I could change systems, but still use the same lens. So for the next 12 days, every morning, I'm going to get a prompt for a video, and I've got to come up with a video, shoot, edit, upload it, and then get ready for the next day. So it starts tomorrow and it ends Christmas Eve. So
is there any stipulation on how long the video has to be or anything?
On the 30-day challenge, there was. She had things like you had to do a single take, so you couldn't edit the video at all. So I had to like sit there and practice what I was going to say because I had to do a single take. And maybe she would have videos that you have to do a video that's no more than 60 seconds. And then further into the 30-day challenge, it would be like, no longer than 2 minutes, or something like that. And as you can see by this Zoom session, it's like I can talk forever. It's like we can be here till tomorrow morning when I get the prompt for the video, and I can still be talking about things. So that was the most difficult part for me, and that is also, I think, one of the best things to learn about doing YouTube videos is that you can do a 30-minute video and just talk, but to do like a 4-minute video that says everything that you said in that 30-minute video is a challenge. So if you watch a lot of these really good YouTubers, their videos are tight. They don't have a lot of, I'm kind of like give a mouse a cookie thing. I start talking about, camera lenses, and I'll start talking about spittlebug larva cocoons. So that's the difficult part, is to condense that. I did a challenge once where I had to do a video in less than 2 minutes about how to photograph the Milky Way. So you really have to like bang out your points. It's like, what lenses do you use? How do you focus? So yeah, tomorrow starts the Make the Damn Video Christmas Challenge.
A lot of people that have YouTube channels, and having a photography YouTube channel is probably the worst kind of channel to have, okay? Because every Tom, Dick, and Harry's got one, and if you don't have a very specific niche or, a game plan, where you're either doing gear reviews or you're teaching them how to use software, those kind of things. If you're just talking about photography, unless you've got a community and a little bit of a following, and I think I do, you stay true to your channel and have fun with it, then, eventually the people will come. Now, my photography channel started back in 2018. Okay. And I've only got 2,200 subscribers in that time frame. So just this week I put a video out about the barn sunrise video.
Oh, that was beautiful. Yeah.
Off of that one video, I gained 15 subscribers. I went, wow, okay, that was a win for me, because normally if I get one subscriber per video, and if the video makes $4 in its lifetime, I'm doing really good. Okay. So it's hard to do it, and you either got to have a niche, or you just got to resort to saying, I'm just going to create videos, okay, about my shooting. And I think what people really want to see is they want to see you out in the field actually shooting. And I have a problem with that. There's a few of us around here that don't have a problem with that, but I have a problem with telling you quickly what I'm doing, okay, and why I'm doing it. And I'm trying to get better at that. So like doing that barn sunrise thing, that one went a little long, okay? But I was trying to get you into it to say, okay, this is not easy, okay? You've got to stand out here. You got to wait for the light. You got to keep on your toes. Don't chimp the back of the camera, because you're going to miss a shot. And, so that's kind of basically it, one thing I think, well, I don't even know what I think now. Anyways, we're about an hour and 15 minutes in. I think we're gonna cut it off here. One thing I want to do is I want to show everybody something that I picked up this week, and I'm going to try to make this part of our show, going forward with these in the next shows I do. And I'm going to make an announcement here who's my next guest. But I was watching Hudson Henry. Do you watch him?
Watch him all the time.
Okay, so he had his holiday gift guide video last week. Did you watch that one?
I did.
I mean, I watch him pretty regular because the guy's nice, and he's nice to listen to. Anyways, him and Rick LePage were coming up with all these things for Christmas that you could buy the photographer. They had like $5 to $20, and then $20 to $50, and then over $50 or $150. Anyways, what really piqued my interest was these. Okay.
Oh, those whips, those think tank
the
whips.
red whips. Okay.
Yep.
And I got on Amazon. They provided a link, and I have provided a link to these in this video tonight. These are really cool because I have a bunch of cables. You know, I have a video bag that has my video stuff in it, my HDMI cables, my battery pack from my Z50 Mark II, and a power strip and all that kind of stuff when I go out and do video recording of presentations. So, you know, having these, okay, this is really cool, okay? So I'm always going around scrounging a Velcro strap somewhere, trying to find one. Yep. And they're such a pain in the ass. You got to unwrap them from the cable, and then it may fall off. You know, it may not fall off, but it may fall off, okay? I'm going to take this one off and get rid of it, okay? I don't need it no more because now I have these. And let me show you. I'm going to wrap my cable up, and I'm going to put this on here like that, okay? And I'm going to pull on it, and it's got a little thing right there, and that's it. So before the show started, I started doing cables.
Nice.
So Rick LePage.
I use them for cables as well, but one of the things I also use them for is I have them in my camera bag. And if I need to like move a tree branch or something like that out of the way without like breaking it off or something, I use those to like cinch those up to get them so I don't have anything blocking my view. That's what I use them for a lot.
So they're elastic, okay, and the package comes with 8 medium, they call it, and 2 large. So Rick LePage, his buddy, said you might as well get 2 packs because your wife is going to want some. So they're a hell of a salesman. So I bought 2 packs, okay? And here's the long ones up here. I just think they're really cool. So if you struggle with cables, or like you said, maybe pulling a tree branch out of the way, and this is it. This is the dog right here, okay? And they just came in the mail tonight. Yeah. I got them out of the mailbox, and I wanted to show them on the show. And there's a link in the description of the video if you want to order your own, okay? I'm not trying to sell you anything, but if you want to order your own.
And it's so nice because people don't know what to get photographers because photography gear is so expensive. And it's like, I think those were like $14 on Amazon. And so that's, and you know, if you had 5 people get you a card of those, you're going to use them all because we have like 1 million cables. And like I said, I have several different camera bags that I keep them in. So if I get some more for this Christmas, they'll definitely be put to use.
Yeah, Ray Saldana just reminded me that there's not a link because we started another live stream. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I'll have to edit that right now. I'm going to go ahead and put his Ray. I'm going to go ahead and put his channel in there. Okay, and save that. You should be able to see it now, Ray. And then I'll put a link to these red things when we get done. So this is a collaboration video for everybody who doesn't know what that means. When I get finished with this video and it processes, anytime we do a live stream, YouTube has to chew on it for about 24 hours before it becomes public available out on the tube. Most of your subscribers will see it before the public will see it. But sometime tomorrow afternoon, YouTube will finish chewing on this and make it public. And I'll send Kevin a collaboration invite. And what that means is he can accept that invite, and this video will become available on his channel also, and he can receive likes and comments also on the video. So that's pretty cool the way that works out. So that's what I'm doing with these interviews. Yeah, hey Dewey, thanks for that. Yeah, Dewey said those are all good comments. And then Ray told me make sure you check the description. I don't see Kevin's YouTube link. I am going to figure this YouTube live stream shit out, okay? If it's the last thing I do. Next show, I haven't set a date yet, but it'll probably be next week. We're going to have Garrick Gillette on, the Double G from the Chicago area. And he's going to be my next guest, and we're going to see if we can learn something about Garrick a little bit. So, anything you want to add to the group, Kevin, before we get off? Anything you want to say?
Just get out there and shoot. You know, it's like photography is kind of like my therapy. You know, it's like whenever I'm stressed or overwhelmed or just kind of lost sometimes, getting out in nature and taking photographs just washes all that stress away. So, you know, the holidays are a stressful time for a lot of us. So get out there and do a bunch of shooting.
Okay, I'm going to stop the live stream now. Thanks for coming to the show, and stay tuned for the announcement for the next show next week. It'll be next week sometime with Garrick. Thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for all your comments, and appreciate everybody, and we'll talk to y'all later.